This episode of Warp 5 is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek FM at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the non-profit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join in on the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode or any other, please join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, that's B-A-B-E-L, into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
This is David A. Goodman, writer and consulting producer for Star Trek Enterprise, and you're listening to Warp 5 on Trek FM.
How we doing, Trip? Ready when you are. Prepare for warp.
Course laid in, sir. Request permission to get underway. Let's go.
Welcome, Boomers, to another episode of Warp 5, Trek FM's dedicated podcast to Star Trek Enterprise. I'm your host, Patrick Devlin, and join with me, as always, is my good friend, Brandon-Shea Mutala. Brandon, how are you?
I am doing very, very good tonight. This is our second podcast in a row recording, so I don't have anything funny to start the episode like I normally do.
Good, because I didn't even know where to go with that last one. I'm doing good, too. In 2 days, I'll be on a boat in the middle of the ocean, so I can't complain.
I'm on a boat!
On a boat?
On a boat.
Sounds
well, it's a ship if you talk to the people who work on it. They get really upset if you call it a boat, but I will. And, listeners, that voice you just heard is Kerry Purvis. Kerry, how are you?
I'm doing great. I think spring is finally here in Maine, so I'm very excited about that. I'm excited to be back here on Warp 5.
We are very excited to have you.
Yay.
What he said.
Yes. That's right. What I said. That's right. This is my show.
Wow. I quit last episode anyway, so it's fine. So,
excellent.
Me being on a ship in the middle of the ocean and quitting is not what we're talking about here today.
Did the ship hit the fan?
Oh.
Come on, 2 episodes in a row I got to put up with that nonsense joke?
I'll tell Carrie the joke because she didn't hear it last time. Number 1 made a number 2 joke.
Oh. I'm saving that for later. That's awesome.
Patrick quit again.
This is becoming a weekly thing. Okay. But we are here to talk about Carrie's first viewing of Season 2 of Enterprise. What are your initial thoughts, just overall reaching thoughts on the entire season there, Kerry?
I enjoyed it. I think this series is still trying to find its legs a little bit. After seeing what was the name of the last episode? I'm already forgetting episode names.
The Expanse.
The Expanse, yeah. I think things are really going to start taking off in the 3rd season. Watching The Expanse was really interesting because it really, I'm sure it was alluding to 9/11, and it really, after the attack on Earth, it just felt like everything kind of changed. The tone changed. So, yeah, I think it's going to really start getting its feet in the 3rd season. But I enjoyed the 2nd season, too. There were some really fun episodes, and some were a little not so fun, but we can talk about that for sure.
Yeah, so I noticed you mentioned 9/11. Now, I've always said to people, if you haven't watched, you have to watch Season 3 because it's like an answer to 9/11. And most people then agree with that, but I've never really heard anyone else say it before. I find it interesting that you brought it up because you're also in the Northeast like me. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of more close to home to us. Like, I'm actually in New York, so I watched 9/11 play out live in front of my eyes. Like, not on a TV, but most people will associate it after you mention it, I think, but they don't really think of it right up front. So, yeah, Season 3 is definitely 9/11. Or at least a response to 9/11, as you'll see as you move forward. And definitely, we'll get into it when you get to the last episode, but definitely that attack is obviously a reference to 9/11, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, unquestionably, I think.
So,
So how would you say that it compares then to season 1?
I think it's interesting. I was just watching an interview with Brennan Braga, and I think Rick Berman was in it, and they mentioned in the second season how they fired a bunch of the writers and that they wanted to get a new feel. And I honestly, though, I feel kind of like they were kind of similar in some ways. The characters are more defined now, I think, and they're getting more settled in their roles. But yeah, I did find there were some similarities too, I think. It's kind of like comparing TNG season 1 and TNG season 2, I think. And with that series, they were still trying to get their footing. I keep saying that, but that's just kind of the feeling I got, that I think the show still didn't quite know what it wanted to be, or what direction it was going at that point. I don't know how either of you feel about that, but that's definitely what I felt.
I would somewhat agree. I think that they knew they wanted to be like exploratory and hope, right? That's kind of how they were trying to portray that. But I also think that somewhere around the middle of season 2, they made a conscious decision that by the end they were going to start talking about more current events. And if you can feel that in this, like in season 1, it was all about hope and exploring. Like, yeah, we're going to go out and explore the galaxy. And then by the middle of season 2 on, you start to feel like a push towards more of that. We're going to go into that 9/11 story soon, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it did start touching more on social issues of the time. Definitely. I noticed that in a number of episodes.
With the season 2 episodes, did you notice any other types of changes as a first-time viewer to the types of stories that we're telling? Because to me, in season 2, they start to have a little bit more callbacks to some of the other Star Treks, with like Romulans and Tellarites and stuffs. So what did you think of that?
I did start to feel like there were definitely more callbacks to different to other series, and I did start to feel like some of the stories kind of had recycled plot lines to them. I noticed, there were definitely some callbacks, like seeing the Borg, which I actually liked. I didn't think I would like that, but I thought regeneration was great. And the Romulans, more Klingons. It's hard to remember all the episodes I've seen since I finished it like over a month ago, but yes. Getting to know the Vulcans, that's been, getting to know more about them has been interesting. We talked last time about how they weren't actually this peace-loving race, and I'm really seeing what you mean now, that they are definitely not.
Yeah, they're not the Vulcans we knew.
Right.
Although, in talks, doing this podcast and stuff, it turns out that they are a little... the Vulcans we knew are more of a reminiscent... we believe they're very nice and cordial and logical, and they're not always that way anyway.
Very true.
Excellent. So what would you say was like a standout episode for you from the second season?
Carbon Creek.
Okay.
Yeah, I loved that. It's just such a feel-good episode, and I watched it and immediately wanted to watch it again. It was so fun. Another one that really stood out was Stigma, and I know that was referring to the AIDS pandemic, but I think it's an important episode to watch today as well, because it made me think of when people were coming forward and talking about why they didn't report their sexual assaults. T'Pol didn't want to report what happened to her, and I think it's a really important episode around that topic. So it's interesting to see how back when the show aired, it was important for the talk about the AIDS pandemic, which it still is, but now there's a whole other side to it that we can look at and talk about.
Yeah, I guess that it is kind of interesting to look at that in this era of Me Too, because, like the Vulcans in it are so the guy is so aggressive and so angry and whatnot, and it's nice to see Archer just support his crew member without question.
Definitely.
Right, which is a good ally. The traits of a good ally is just support.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So to bring you back one step, though, you said Carbon Creek was a standout episode. Do you believe the events in Carbon Creek actually happened, or it's just a story?
I don't know. Maybe they happened. I think it's a great story, whether or not it happened. I think, but with T'Pol, at the end of the episode, did she have the Velcro at the end? I'm trying to remember what it was she had at the end that showed the type.
Purse.
The purse. That's it. The purse. Yes. Now that I think back to that, I think it did happen. But what do you think?
Oh, I think it happened, and I think that's what made it an essential episode. But I got voted down by Brandon. So
no, Brandon, you don't think so?
No, I think it happened as well, but we just didn't deem it as an essential episode.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. Now, I have a thought on that episode. So, Mestral, they said he was probably on Earth for the rest of his life, however long that is, because Vulcans live a long time, and maybe he didn't reveal that he was a Vulcan to people. But Ponfar is every 7 years, right? I think. Mm-hmm. So if he was going through Ponfar, I think if they don't mate, then they die. Is that true?
Well, that was true in 1967.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, it hasn't really been true since, right?
Well, wasn't there a Voyager episode, though, where B'Elanna, what happened? There was the Vulcan who liked her, Boric, yeah, and then somehow it's been a while since I've seen that one too. But somehow she wound up with Ponfar, and they said she could die if she didn't mate.
Yeah, but then Tuvok had Ponfar, and they just they did a hologram just to ease the symptoms, not necessarily to keep him from dying. So they go back and forth on it or whatever. So maybe he only lived 7 years, or maybe he lived a long time, which is one of the reasons why some people don't believe the episode actually happened, because how did no one ever find the body? But I mean, he went and hid in a cave. It was 1957.
Yeah, plenty of caves to hide in.
Right.
He fell in love with that woman who was running the bar.
Yeah, Shirley Baker from A League of Their Own.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So he stuck around for that. So I'm content with that. I mean, like, it's one of those things where Dayton Ward wrote a couple of stories that take place, and Mestral actually shows up in some of the novels. We had Dayton Ward on to do a commentary for Carbon Creek.
Oh, cool!
Many episodes, yeah. So if you want to take a listen to that, it's back in the feed somewhere. I can take a look.
Yeah.
But we talk about Mestral, and it's interesting to get an author's point of view on one of those episodes as well. Mm-hmm. But I can see if I can find that episode number for you.
Yeah, please. That's awesome.
Since we talked about your standout episodes, which were the ones that stood out for all the wrong reasons?
Oh my gosh, what is the name of that terrible one that was like Mud's Women, or let me see, the Precious Cargo was awful. Yes. Terrible episode. But it's funny, I was looking at my notes for that one, and what did I write? At the end of it, I wrote, "Her hair looks great after a roll in the swamp." So I guess that was the highlight of the episode for me. No, I did not like that episode. It was just so silly and campy, and I wasn't a fan at all. And then I didn't really care for the 7th. That was just upsetting, I thought. And I think those were really the two big ones I wasn't fond of.
The 7th, that's the one where we're like, oh, it's the 7th Samurai. No, it's not. So that's Marauders. Yeah, I know now which one it is. It's the one with the Vulcans. But, yeah, that one didn't stand out. How about the finale, or sorry, the premiere, Shockwave Part 2? Was that a satisfactory season opener? Was that a satisfactory conclusion for you? Bringing in Daniels and the time, the Temporal Cold War again?
I think for the most part it was. The way Archer got back, I felt like there were kind of some holes in that. They just built this this machine. I don't even remember. Maybe it wasn't a machine. They built something from reading the books, and then he got back, and that just seemed. I would have liked a little more
space telephone.
A little more explanation for that. I felt it was just satisfactory wrapping it up, but I think they could have added a little more to it too. It seemed a little rushed.
Mm-hmm. The commentary was episode 110 of Warp 5.
Mm-hmm.
Chocolate Chip Cookies is the name of the episode.
Awesome.
Episode 110. So
Chocolate Chip Cookies.
It was a good commentary. Geez, that's almost 80 episodes ago now. Holy smokes!
I wasn't even here for that.
No,
I showed up at like 1:30 or something.
Yeah.
So what did you think of episodes like Cogenitor or what were your thoughts on Cogenitor?
Cogenitor, I had a really hard time with that one. I had some mixed feelings about it. The ending was just tragic. What happened to Charles? I believe that was what they called the Cogenitor. That's what they wanted to be called. I have a hard time deciding if I agreed. I mean, I agreed with what Tripp did, or if I think that whether or not I agree with him getting involved with that, because I agree that the Cogenitor should have had equal rights and not been subjected to that, but also the way Tripp tried to help liberate them, I guess, wound up with them dying by suicide, and that was really sad, and it had a very Handmaid's Tale kind of feeling to it.
Well, I haven't seen Handmaid's Tale yet, so don't spoil it.
I won't. You should read the book too, though.
Yeah, Margaret Atwood, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, no, I haven't seen it or read it. My wife watched the first season of that. She said she really liked it.
Yeah, I haven't watched the show yet, but I read the book recently.
I didn't either.
Yeah, see, that one's always been like a really interesting one for me, because I look, if you go back to the episode that we did, we had Dan Deavy from Gaze in Space come on, and we talked about Cogenitor, and we had Barry DeFord of Politrex come on the show as well. And, like, one of the things that I always think about with that episode is, like, what are the rights of the individual as opposed to the civilization? And if this 3% is necessary for creating the species, if you remove them and grant them the rights and they choose to not do what they want to do, then that could mean the death of the whole society, and we had discussions of like, well, they could probably come up with some type of artificial insemination of some sort, and it's like, well, okay, so then my thought process is, what if they can't because of what the Cogenitor is? But it's a good discussion episode, and I think it's still very important, very, very important episode. It's a painful, and it should be painful, but it also should provoke thought, and it should provoke debate and philosophical conversations. So.
Yeah, I actually really like the episode for how hard it is to watch and to talk about. That's one of the things I like about it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that episode either. Just keep talking about all the episodes. The sad part is I set it up too, and, but there was one reason or another I knew I wasn't going to make it, but I really wanted to talk about that episode, and you're right. The ending kind of sucks, but I do believe Tripp is justified in trying to help them liberate themselves, because I just think that the individual has more rights than the society.
Yeah, very true. I mean, I absolutely think that he was justified. I think where I struggle with it is just that the Cogenitor didn't really have, once he gave them the awareness that, I don't know how to describe this.
I do. Hold on. I think I know exactly how you're trying to describe this, because I think
you know what I'm saying.
I had this argument a few times with other things than just this. It's great to liberate, but then just up and leave. You do not give them the tools they need once they are.
Yes.
You don't give them the tools they need moving forward. It's great to give someone their freedom, but you have to then stay there and help them to get to the next step so that they don't need you anymore to do that. That was the problem with the episode. And I think that plays a big role in not just this episode, but society in general. We've done that a lot in other countries, and we've gone and knocked out regimes and, whatever. And then we don't do anything for the people there. So we're back in the same boat, or a worse boat, than we were when we started.
Right, exactly.
Now, if I remember correctly, you had mentioned that you really liked Hoshi and Mayweather, and they didn't get a whole lot in the first season, and they didn't as well in this season. They each had kind of one episode that focused on them. We had Horizon.
I loved Horizon.
Talk about that.
Yeah, well, I loved it just because we got to see more of Mayweather. That was really awesome. And from what I was told on Twitter, this is the last time he gets an episode just dedicated to him.
Well, he dies in the start of season 3.
No.
No, I'm just kidding.
Why would you do that to her? However, with the amount of episodes he might as well.
Right, yeah.
It's unfortunate, like when we asked you that in season 1, so spoiler alert, all I thought was, oh man, she's going to be disappointed. But
yeah, it is disappointing.
Yeah, it's just, there are more Hoshi episodes. I don't know how good they are.
Oh man, I just watched one of the ones in season 3, and we'll talk about that another time. But the Beauty and the Beast like one, that was just terrible.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
Crab face McCrabberson.
And she must have been like, they had her wearing these tiny little dresses, and I just kept watching her walk through the castle and thinking, isn't she cold?
But this season we got Vanishing Point, where she thinks she's turning invisible, right? And then we get her crazy parent, Buck Bokai, and he's like, I don't know, we like to make fun of that episode. Just our family. She's not your family. She's our family.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, I didn't really like that episode. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't thrilled with it either.
It's Hoshi, cherish it.
Yeah, well, right, exactly. Yeah. I liked. There were some Hoshi moments that I thought were good, like in which one, the Martyrs, I think it was called, where she was
Marauders.
Thank you. Oops. Where she was shooting, and she like. Malcolm had trained her before, and now she was confident. That was nice to see. And then in Shockwave Part 2, when she was tackling her fears of with her claustrophobia, crawling through the ship, and that was great until she fell through and lost her shirt, and that just didn't seem necessary. But
hey, you know what? I'm okay with that now. With the amount of people talking about Ethan Peck's butt, you know.
Oh, I haven't followed Discovery, but I have seen things about his butt.
Honestly, a year ago, I would have said the exact same thing you just said. That's kind of unnecessary. But yeah, after doing a podcast on Discovery for this past season and hearing about his butt, yeah.
Now I'm curious.
Now I'm okay with it.
Now I don't mind so much. I'm okay with what we got. So
okay.
It wasn't over the top, so it wasn't crazy.
No,
crazy.
It wasn't over.
No, the top just went over.
Right, exactly. Right. But
yes,
leave it to Brendan to twist what I'm saying. Moving on.
Yes.
What did you think? I'm just trying to pick up random episodes, but like an episode like Minefield, how'd you feel about that one?
Minefield. That's the one with the Romulans and and there was the mine on the ship, right? And then
boom,
Malcolm
through his leg.
failed. Yeah.
Yes.
I liked that. Yeah, and I liked seeing Malcolm in that episode and getting to know a little bit more about him and how he's very formal and he didn't feel comfortable having a meal with his captain. He didn't think people should be fraternizing. That was interesting. And then how learning about how his family was in the Navy, and what really stuck out to me was when he was saying, I'm ready for you to blow this up if you have to. The ship comes first, and that was very Malcolm, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that really set up going forward his character too. I mean, you'll see it more in season 3, and that scene really sets up the temperament of Malcolm, which I thought was good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I liked it when he said, when they gave him, I think it was painkillers or something, and he said, "Please, sir, can I have some more?" It was classic.
A running joke everywhere.
Yes.
So there was some other interesting episodes. Like we got to learn a little bit about Phlox's culture in the episode "The Breach."
Yes.
Right. And like the racism that they have with that other species. I thought that was a really fascinating episode, and it was really interesting to get kind of this dark history for his culture, for the Denobulans.
You okay over there?
Yes.
Blah, blah, blah,
you having
blah,
a
blah.
stroke? What's going on? The Nobulans.
Denobulans.
It's the Canadian way. A boot.
A boot?
Sorry, you were saying, I just had to, he tortures me all the time. I have to take my shots when I can.
Oh, well.
No, but you were saying. So, what did you think of seeing this side of the Denobulans, though?
It was interesting, and I feel like that's an episode that is also a good discussion point for today, with the discussion of racism. And I thought it was touching when he was composing the letter to his son at the end of the episode, wanting to reconnect with him and hoping that maybe hearing about his experience would help change his son and maybe bring them back together too. But that was really sad, seeing how he and his son were estranged because of that. But Phlox, really, there was a lot of character development in that. I think we get to see a lot more of him and his culture there, and that was really great. Okay,
so now here we go. Here's the one that I've been waiting for. So future tense.
Future tense. Yeah, I liked that, but I'm going to be honest. Like, I had a hard time. There was just so much going on. Like, the shuttle that was bigger on the inside than the outside, and then the time loop, and then the Suliban, and it was good, but there was just, I had a hard time following it, to be honest.
Too much going on.
You should have just stopped it. Oh, because you threw a dagger right at Brandon with that one.
I'm sorry, Brandon.
Oh, well, it's been nice knowing you, and go have fun all by yourself with your season 3 and 4 watch.
At this point, Brandon's by himself. I don't know who he's podcasting with, but we'll do season 3 together.
No, I didn't hate the episode. No, I knew you liked it, Brandon, and that's why I did because I do like it, but if you were to ask me the whole storyline, I probably would forget half of it because there was just so much going on. But what do you like about it? I'm curious.
So again, if you go to the first episode of Warp 5 I did was episode 92, and we did a commentary. They said, Brandon, what do you want to do? I said, let's do a commentary for future tense. And, to me, the episode screams prequel, and that's what we named the podcast. The episode screams prequel because there's so much in it, because we've got the Tholians, right? And I've mentioned, like, one of my top 5 moments of the entire Enterprise run is the first time we hear the Tholian voice in that episode, because it calls back to the Tholian web. But not only that, when Archer asks the question, could this be Zephram Cochrane?
Yes, that was cool.
It calls back to Metamorphosis from the original Star Trek as well, because we see Zephram Cochrane had left Earth.
That's right. Yes.
So, it's just, there's so much in it. And so the episode to me just screams prequel, and it's what I wanted so much more out of Enterprise, and it was done in such a wonderful way. There is a lot going on in the episode, and like, even when we did our essential episode, we determined it's not essential because it's not, they don't directly call it as a tie-in to the temporal Cold War. It's there, but it's not, they don't even mention the temporal Cold War or anything. There's just like this time traveling aspect of it. But I don't know. I love the idea of the time loop. I just think there's so much really cool stuff in the episode.
Yeah, and I hadn't really considered the prequel angle to it. I haven't watched TOS in a while. So maybe sometime in the future I'll do a TOS rewatch and come back to this episode, because maybe I would appreciate it a little more then.
Right, because, like, in Discovery we had things where they, like, call back to something specific, and they, like, talk about specific events, right? Like, so if you're not too much into it, like, there is a callback to an Enterprise episode in Discovery, and while that's great because it establishes the continuity of the Star Trek universe, these little things are hinting at the prequel aspect without directly calling to it. They say something which makes you think of something else rather than saying, this is exactly what we're talking about. I hope I'm wording it right.
But yeah, totally.
That's what I love about the episode so much, and that's what a prequel should be to me.
Yeah, that's cool. I will say that when Phlox was saying, well, this is not any human, he's part human, part Vulcan, and my thought went to, I wonder if this is one of Mestral's ancestors. Ooh. So, but that wasn't it, but that was my first thought.
Oh, I never even thought of that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on.
Nice.
Yeah, so we got lots of great stuff in season 2. We're kind of all over the place. Now, you'd mentioned Pon farr. So let's talk about T'Pol's Pon farr and Bounty.
Oh my goodness, that was Just
Yes, half of that episode is so painful.
it was very painful to watch. Just
50% painful, that episode.
Yes.
The bounty hunter aspect with the Tellarite is so cool.
yeah.
But
And yet the other plot is horrendous.
Yes. Yes. It was quite horrendous.
good old Pon farr and medical loop.
But really, have they?
Are there any good Pon farr episodes out there?
That's what I was going to say. I think.
Amok Time's great.
Oh yeah, right. Yes.
Okay, and then
that one's great.
I think the one with Tuvok is good. I remember. I don't remember the name of it.
I don't
but
either. I don't think it
remember
was that
being
good either.
I don't think so.
Well,
Not for
we
me.
don't get that much Vulcan stuff. So.
I see
True.
Pon farr and I think, stop! Don't watch. So, which brings me to another episode that actually is highly ranked that I'm surprised. But Dead Stop, what'd you think of that episode?
Which one was that?
That's the one where they go to get repaired and Mayweather's dead. So you like Mayweather, so...
Oh, yeah, that was that kind of, what was that movie with Hal? The Space Odyssey one, was that it?
2001, yeah.
Yeah, that I just kept thinking of that when I watched it. And I guess the computer voice in that was Roxanne Dawson.
Yes.
Yep. She
that
directed it as well.
That's right. Yeah. That was all right. I enjoyed that episode. It wasn't a favorite, but yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, see-
I guess I don't have a lot to say about
See,
it.
but that's interesting because, I mean, I thought it was cool the way they figured out it was not Mayweather and all that, those things. But
That was cool, yes.
So,
that was cool.
But I'm just flipping through IMDb as we're doing this, right? Just to pick episodes, and it's like the fourth or fifth highest ranked episode of the season. And I like the episode, but that seems high.
Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that one would be one of the higher
I mean,
ones.
it is behind the season finale. It's behind Future Tense and Regeneration. It's also behind not Minefield. It's behind Carbon Creek, which is second highest, and Shockwave. So it's sixth, but it's sixth out of 24.
26.
Sorry. But right, so there's 20 episodes, 19 episodes worse than it.
Right. Yeah, I wonder. That's interesting.
Right on. Excellent. Okay, well, is there anything else that you want to touch on from Season 2 that we haven't asked you about? Any other favorite character moments? Any other favorite, B-plots or anything like that?
I'm curious to hear what you both think about the sickbay one, A Night in Sickbay, I think. Yeah, that one. You saw my notes for that. I just thought that was such a ridiculous episode, especially when seeing the fake dog that was so clearly fake. Yeah, I'm interested what you two think of it.
Patrick, you go first.
If I remember right, I actually enjoyed this episode.
Yeah.
I mean, look, one of the things about this episode is it's one of the only episodes, even though it's a fake Porthos, it has to do with Porthos, so that kind of brings it up.
Oh,
a
yeah,
bit.
I mean, that made it good.
And seeing, if you watch it for Archer's reactions, I think it's a good episode. However,
true.
most people agree with you, apparently, because it's rated pretty low. But I enjoyed it. What'd you think?
You don't like the sexual tension and Archer's faux pas with his words?
Me?
I'm trying
You
my
asking me?
best.
No, but
Wasn't that what he said?
yeah, I mean,
something
look,
like that.
there was a lot of stuff in there. The second season had a lot of stuff. But,
Yeah, that's a pain.
Lot of
It's kind of
stuff.
painful.
A lot
It's
of
a painful
stuff.
episode.
A lot of stuff.
But if you look past the stuff, there's some good story elements in a lot of these episodes, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, definitely. In Horizon, I liked when, not Hoshi, when T'Pol decided to go watch the movie, the Frankenstein movie. That was fun. And I was really amused when Phlox wouldn't shut up and she turned around and said to him, we can pause the movie if you'd like to finish your conversation or something like that. But that was amusing.
Yeah, well, the movie nights are good because we made a podcast out of that, too. So,
Oh, you did that recently,
yeah,
right?
we did. I don't like the Frankenstein movies that much. But,
Almost done, Patrick. One more.
I
One
know.
more.
I have high hopes for the last one.
What's the last one?
Young.
We're going to do Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
that
one,
one's fun. That's a fun
But
one.
it's totally different than the others. So,
Yeah.
we just released Son of Frankenstein, and out of the first three, that was my favorite. But
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, in that episode too, when T'Pol said they should have a dramatic reading of Frankenstein, and Trip just totally shoots her down, and I would go to T'Pol's book group.
I would too.
It would be fun. It would be really fun. And Frankenstein celebrated its 200th anniversary last year, so I think it would be very fitting.
Oh, the book did? Okay.
Well, that's an interesting little fact. I did not know that.
Yep.
I didn't realize it was that old. I knew it was 1800s, but I guess I thought it was later 1800s.
Yeah, yep, 18.
Well, it wasn't.
18.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay, well, anything else that we want to touch on before we sign off for the day?
I think that's pretty much a good summary of the season. I'm excited about next season. I'm also looking forward to, this is a little further down the road, but I've read a little bit of the first Destiny novel, and it mentions Erica Hernandez.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing her, but I don't think she comes till season 4, correct?
Yeah, season 4, episode 3. The episode Home is the first time we only see her 2, maybe 3 times in season 4, but I guess I have one more question for you then, is how would you say that your interactions have been, like the support on Twitter and whatnot, because you're tweeting out when you're watching new episodes and stuff, right?
Yes.
How would you say the interaction with the fandom has been?
It's been really fun. I've been getting to meet some cool people, and just hearing people's thoughts on the episodes has been really great. And we've had some good laughs. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. And the reaction's been very positive. When I initially posted that I was going to be watching the show and asking like for advice or what people liked about the show, I thought I'd get maybe like 10 likes and 10 comments, but it just, like, so many people were commenting, I couldn't keep up with it, and it was a surprise, a very pleasant one.
Yeah, it starts to snowball quickly.
It was snowballing.
I do have one other question before we wrap up. It's about an episode, because I've always been fascinated by this episode because it's kind of a prequel of a prequel. But what did you think of First Flight?
I liked First Flight. I liked that. It was interesting to just see Archer's determination to get things going off the ground. And were they trying to hit Warp 3? I can't remember.
Warp 2.
Oops, Warp 2.
Yeah.
Seeing his determination with that was kind of cool. So
that's another one, because we did a podcast on the movie. What was the movie, Brandon?
Oh goodness, what's it called now?
It's a movie about test pilots.
It's the movie that the episode's based on.
Correct. That's what I'm trying to get to.
The Mercury 7. It's based on. No.
This episode is based on
The Good Stuff or The Right Stuff.
The Right Stuff.
It's
called The Right Stuff, and it's based on the test pilots for the original, like lunar landings and stuff, or the original space flights, the first space flight.
Yeah, I think it might have, I was reading the Wikipedia about it earlier. I think it was the Mercury 7, but
it might have been the Mercury 7 rocket, yeah, but it's called The Right Stuff, and it's a very good movie if you haven't seen it, and it's not just based on that. They're basically hand in hand, these two, this episode and that movie. But
nice. I'll have to check it out. It sounds good.
Excellent, right on. Well, thanks so much for joining us again. We look forward to hearing your take on Season 3, and I'm kind of looking forward to it because of how the season is different than the rest of Enterprise. You know, like this season-long arc that they've decided to undertake. I'm interested to see what your impressions are. You've seen a few episodes here. We touched a little bit, but, we'll have you on for sure when Season 3 is finished in your rewatch. So, Kerry, where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter at KerrBear. It's KerrBearLib. KerrBear Lib.
Excellent. And, so follow Kerry. You interact with her, talk to her about some Enterprise episodes. You're probably going to be close to the middle of your Season 3 rewatch by the time this gets released, this episode here. But keep following her and truck along with her for Season 4, because there's lots of great stuff in Season 4.
Oh, I'm excited.
Excellent. Well, talking about Pon farr is not all we've been discussing here on the network this week, so please take a listen to this clip to see what else you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, Literary Treks.
It always frustrated me because on screen we saw in-depth the Klingon government, the Bajoran government, the Cardassian government, to a lesser extent, the Romulan government. We almost never saw the Federation government. You know, we three times we saw a president. Once we saw the council. The council was mentioned any number of times, but we never really saw it.
Warp 5.
When I go to throw a switch for the first time, a 4,000 amp switch, I got to wear this heavy, thick, padded uniform to make sure that if something went wrong, I don't die. But if I can get some Tholian silk...
Yeah, you could look good
it'd be like
doing it at the same time.
Right. T-shirt and jeans, and we're good. Maybe some
I'm just thinking for when I go to Mexico, I can have a stylish Tholian silk Mexican Hawaiian or a Hawaiian shirt. I love it.
Yeah, because you got to know that stuff would be light on you. It would look good. It would breathe well.
Earl Grey.
Yeah, and the odd thing was I really didn't know. And I remember my dad came to me. I was like 9 years old. I'm watching TV downstairs in New Jersey, and I'm watching some old James Cagney movie. And James Cagney was, in a scene where he was, beating up a bunch of people, like in a ballroom brawl. And my dad came downstairs. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and he saw me really watching James Cagney beat up all these guys. And my dad said to me, "You really like James Cagney?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, "Do you want to be like James Cagney?" And I thought about it, and I said, "No, but I want to be those guys he's beating up."
Melodic Treks.
And in this music, you have these soaring horns that introduce the melody, and they carry it through. And the sound, because the register is very high, the sound, and because of the nature of the French horn, the sound is very hollow. It's somewhat ghostly and haunting.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out all these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcast. If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave a star rating and written review. If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, and most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab the RSS link.
We don't hear hands on today's show, and there are many ways for you to do that. The best way to join in the learning conversation and the video conference, or listen to Groove on Facebook.
What was that?
I don't know. I don't know.
All right. Our listeners group on Facebook. I don't.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways for you to do that. The best place to join in the larger conversation is the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, that's B-A-B-E-L, into the search field on Facebook, and it should come right up. If you'd like to send us an email, you can use the forum on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to a show and select Warp 5. That will come right to us. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. Patrick, where can people find you when you're not experiencing Ponfar and trapped in a room with Flux?
That sounds horrible. Terrible.
It sounds like the worst episode of Enterprise to me.
Yeah, let's not write that for season 5. So, if that's not happening, please don't let that ever happen. I can be found
Patrick's Ponfar.
Well, I am to Pat, right?
Yeah, to Pat's to Ponfar.
To Pat's to Ponfar. Hanging out with Paul. Not to Paul, to Paul. But I can't speak anymore, so I'm screwing this all up. You can find me on Twitter at MagicDrop5. It's no spaces with a digit for the 5, not letters. You can also find me hanging out in the Babel Conference from time to time. I like to interact with the listeners. And you can find me on The Edge with Amy Nelson every other week, just like this show. And that's about all the places you can find me. I'm supposed to say that to you now, huh? So, Brandon, where can people find you when you're not hiding out dead inside a system that's fixing my ship, but the real you is really... Oh, God. Hey, so, Brandon, I screwed it up. So, Brandon...
I'm leaving this all in.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
I'm editing.
You suck. So, Brandon, where can people find you when we're not hanging out with a fake you while you're dead inside a repair station? Apparently he's an aquatic.
I'm trying to do that voice from Spaceballs, where the guy's like,
all right, look, if you've ever fired me before, you're really going to fire me now. I've never watched that movie in full. I've probably never seen 60% of that movie.
I'm surrounded by
No, I get the reference. I've never even seen that line. It's not something that, I don't know. Comedies about movies I like is not something I like.
Give it to me.
Give you what?
Give it to me.
What am I giving you?
Your nerd card.
I have a nerd card.
Give it to me.
No.
I'm revoking it.
No.
You go watch Spaceballs tonight.
I got stuff to do.
I don't care. This is Spaceballs.
See,
okay?
ask my wife. Go ahead, tell him.
Oh, yes, he's got stuff to do, like now. Like
See?
right now, before I kill him. If you still want him, I need him now.
Yes, but you tell her that I told you to watch Spaceballs. Tell her.
He said I have to watch Spaceballs.
You've never seen Spaceballs?
Now she's mad at me, you jackass. All of this should go at the end, by the way.
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at Brandon Mutala. You've never seen Spaceballs?
That didn't go as planned.
Your wife's even disappointed in you.
You might have just gotten me kicked off this ship.
You're not going on your honeymoon, you're watching Spaceballs.
Yeah, that's it.
Or your anniversary. You can find me here on the network with Melodic Treks, which is all about the music of Star Trek. You can find me on the Fandom Podcast Network with my friends Chris and Tom, talking about Hitchcock films. You can find me every once in a while
just not
on
Spaceballs.
Just not Spaceballs. Every once in a while on Cinematic Sound Radio with Breaking the Waves, which is all about electronic film scores, and Zach Moore from Standard Orbit. He and I have a podcast called Franchise Fatigue on the United Federation of Podcast Network, where we cover films, sequels, and remakes in a series. We cover them all, and as of the recording of this, as the release of this, we should be starting up our Toy Story series.
I know someone who's going on that.
Yeah, you're supposed to be, but you got to watch Spaceballs first.
That's not at all a requirement.
And I think that's pretty much everywhere you can find me. I'm just still mind-boggled that you haven't seen Spaceballs.
So what you're saying is I have to watch it before I talk about Toy Story.
Yes.
All right, well, if you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, and me to watch Spaceballs, apparently, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more. Available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month. We really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all the details at patreon.com/TrekFM.
And we'd like to thank our fellow Spaceballs who support the network and Warp 5 individually. Norman C. Lau, Floyd Dorsey, Mike Morrison, Tim Cooper, Justin Ozer, Mark Flessa, Chris Tribuzio, and Jim McMahon. You guys all have a special extra shipment of Perrier coming to you.
A what?
And Patrick would get that joke if he'd seen Spaceballs.
I don't get it. I don't.
We're grateful for you supporting the show as well as the network. Thank you. We appreciate it. Okay, well, next time we're going to be hitting up movie night again with Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. So we're gonna try and rush through, and we want to get the movie series done because we've been dealing with that for quite a while now. You know, we've had so many other things come up, so we're gonna do Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And yes, but until then, remember, you can't be afraid of the wind.